we are here for the Reincarnation Book Club, and our guest is Vinita Pande, who is a spiritual author. And jokingly, I would say she has a past life in this life as an engineer in the Silicon Valley corporate world. But now Vinita is fully engaged in her spiritual pursuits. She has many books to her name and is working on another book right now. But the book that we are going to discuss today, Dance of Duality, is a novel based on a Kashmiri woman. Her name is Lala, and she had several mystical experiences. In this book, Vinita describes Lala's somewhat ordinary external life. So the interesting thing in this book is that Lala, who's the main character, has a pretty ordinary external life. But it's who she is inside, her spiritual yearnings, her mystical leanings, that lead to her purpose. And the book talks about Eastern spirituality and also Western healing modalities. And there are many events in the book connected to past lives, life between lives, channeling, walk-ins, you name it, it's all there. And so it makes a fascinating read. So now a bit more, just a little bit more about Vinita, that in addition to being an author and engineer, she offers spiritual guidance, is a certified spiritual life coach, past life regression therapist, and a facilitator of the quantum consciousness experience. And you may check her website, vinitapande.com, to see the full range of what she offers. Vinita, welcome to the Symposium Book Club, Reincarnation Symposium Book Club. Great to have you here. Now, this book can be deceiving in looks because it looks somewhat small, but it packs a lot. So let us start right there. Please share what this book is about and how you thought of the storyline and the characters of this book.
Well, thank you, first of all, for hosting me. It's really, really nice to be in a group of people that are very similar to myself. So thanks to Carol and you. So it's very funny because I was talking to a very famous psychic, Bonnie McCliss, and this is before I started this book. And she says, "Oh, I see you writing an autobiography." And when I started writing this book as a fiction, I kind of let it flow, but I did not know that this is going to come out as a combination of fiction as well as my own experiences. So I didn't want to write an autobiography because then you're very restricted with, being factual and things like that. But I wanted the liberty to create a fictional story where I could play and have fun because, I usually write nonfiction, but I wanted to, fly with it and have fun. And I also wanted to write about the future to come. So I chose the character, especially to be a Kashmiri woman who is sort of like a modern mystic. And Kashmir is known for a lot of mystics. And her name goes on Laleshwari or Lal Ded, who's a very famous female mystic from Kashmir. Amazing poems, and her life is just wonderful. So I chose that name to highlight, what who her name was has gone after, and why I chose Dance of Duality is because we need to celebrate duality and dance with it and play with it and not just reject it. And so this book is really about she, demonstrating the light aspect, and her twin brother, who is a very evolved soul, who volunteers to come to the planet to demonstrate the dark side and to show humanity the contrast. And then how she moves in the duality of the world without rejecting it. So she lives a very integrated spirituality in the world, just like I did. I worked in IT, and I did, I had a family. And why her life purpose was really to live a very pragmatic life. So combine the mystical and the mundane really is the gist of the book.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. Tell us a little bit about who the other characters in this book are, the important characters that are like in the supporting role.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, the other main character here is her brother, her twin brother, Abhi. And Abhi comes to demonstrate the exact opposite of what she's like. I mean, she's very spiritual, he's very materialistic, she's very balanced, he's very off balanced. She doesn't have any sort of personality or mood issues, but he does. And so everywhere, you see this contrast of one person who is demonstrating to be a role model, and the other one is demonstrating. So one, like she's leading an evolutionary life, while her brother Abhi is leading more of a very self-destructive life. And then her husband, Sid, who is an exemplary sort of partner, who's very supportive, who's very understanding, and yet he's not spiritual like her, but he's wise in a normal, natural way. He doesn't have to be spiritual. He's a very good human being. He's a neurosurgeon in Bay Area, and that life of the married life with Sid is what I wanted to bring out with that character of exemplary, sort of what your partner should be. And I do know people like that in real life, so it's not sort of fictional completely. And then of course there are others like her parents, because I talk about really ordinary life of in Indian Americans. So her husband's family, her own family. So those are really the main characters in the book.
Right, right, right. Now the book's central theme is about Lala's spiritual explorations and journey, and it is narrated in her voice.
Mhm.
Um, so is this book autobiographical? Can you share what parts of the book are based on your own life?
Yes, so it's kind of like I said, it is kind of autobiographical, but there are a lot of places where, of course, I'm not a Kashmiri, and I mean, obviously, I'd never had a husband who's named Sid or a husband like that. Um, and even my brother's character is fictional. But a lot of the spiritual experiences are very much mine. I might have shifted a few experiences from, factual, but the ones that I have described are my own. So yes,
Right.
it is a lot of the theme is similar because I was born in India and I came here and things like that. So, but it's a mix. It's a mix, but the experiences are my own. Yeah.
So now Lala is, as you had mentioned earlier, named after a well-known saint poet of Kashmir in India.
Mhm.
Can you share how she might have some personality traits or perhaps even past lives as a saint? And what is the symbolism behind giving her that name?
Yes. So I wanted to, like I said, portray a modern mystic. Now, Lala did have a past life regression session in the book. And in that she, her experience was a little different. But in one of her channeling sessions, which with Kevin Ryerson, the spirit that comes through Kevin Ryerson, who's a famous channel in real life, and I have had a session with him. He tells her that, you know, you were a Kashmiri saint in your previous life. And so she asks him, like, who was it? And so he doesn't tell her. He says, no, the name's not important. But it does come through in the book that apparently she was a Kashmiri saint. It's not
Mm-hmm.
revealed who she is,
Right.
um, and whether she was male or female. But a lot of her life's experiences are very parallel to Lala's, the original saint's experiences. They're similar. I mean,
Right.
um, the kind of the experiences of oneness and bliss and devotion,
Mm-hmm.
very similar but in a modern context. So why is it important? Because, you know, I feel that I love mystics, you know, and they transcend religions. So, you know, it's about love, it's about oneness. I love the poetry. So I wanted to bring in a modern mystic into the book.
That sounds really wonderful. That sounds lovely. And reading through the book and getting to know Lala, close at hand, I can feel the you know how her nature is as a mystic, uh, very much like we would expect a saintly person to be.
Mhm.
Um, and now going back to the character of her twin brother, who is also named after a famous philosopher saint from Kashmir, Abhinav Gupta. But the brother has completely different traits from what you would think a saint would have. And in fact, a total contrast to Lala's personality.
Mhm.
And you did mention a little bit earlier, the purpose for making him a somewhat dark and unstable character. Um, can you talk a little bit about how that character contrasts with Lala's?
Yes. So Abhi's character has been depicted because I wanted to bring forth some of the common problems that we are having in this age. And like I said, it's a fictional character, but I did want to um, address the issues, whether it is addictions or whether it's mental health issues, relationship issues, and those kind of things that, you know, are very real today and they're being talked about, and how his life also evolves, and to know that there can be a change in such people as well. It's not like doomsday or something like that, but um, I wanted to show that the sister, his own sister, how she also deals with him, because the relationship
Right,
is very difficult, because he's quite verbally abusive sometimes. He's difficult to deal with. And the entire family actually suffers. The parents, his wife wants to leave him, and how that is dealt with in a spiritual context. So I
right.
wanted to bring that across in the characters. So I definitely wanted to show that contrast of duality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to also show that sometimes these souls come and volunteer to lead very difficult lives, to exemplify certain things and certain problems or certain challenges of society as a whole, and how to overcome them, how
Right.
they're like trailblazers that, you know, sort of show the path to others. So, and at the end of the book, when he transcends, he actually goes back to his original soul nature towards the end of the book. So, I mean, that's kind of the purpose of bringing him in, I guess. Um, yeah, he's quite opposite to Abhinav Gupta, who's a philosopher. So, yeah.
But my next question is, uh, Lala's had an upbringing in a Hindu household, but even there, she knew early on that She was not religious, but spiritual.
Mhm.
She knew the difference. Could you throw some light on that side of her personality?
Yes, and that's an important distinction because she had her own experiences. Um, and she wasn't, I mean, even though she was in a Hindu household, or let's say a Vedic household, where, there were regular sacred rituals going on and things like that. Her parents were not overly religious, I would say. They were quite open. But her own experiences from childhood, because she did have, immense spiritual experiences from the time she was born. I mean, that's what's described, that she was so different. Initially, she probably thought that everybody's able to see people that she can see. I think later on she realized, oh, I'm seeing people, but other people can't see what I'm seeing. And um, her connection to herself and her connection to another world that exists, the mystical world,
Right,
the subtle world, the astral world, that superseded any sort of conditioning from our family or society. So that's why she was always open to other spiritual paths, and that's why I like mystics, because they transcend religions, like I said. Um, so yes, so her personality is very much needed in society today,
hmm,
where, you can follow a personal religious path if you like. That's, you keep it to yourself in your home, or maybe your family follows it. But she also investigated every Vedic ritual to understand it better rather than just follow it blindly. So it's more of an experiential spiritual life that she followed.
sure, sure. Much more than intellectual, I guess.
Yes,
Um, and also when you mentioned that she saw other people, you're talking about spirits present, say in a room, that she could see but others could not.
correct. So, in her childhood, like right from the time she
Hmm.
was a little child to even when she was older, um, she could see the astral realm very easily. But
Right.
of course, as she grew older, some of that kind of went away, as is normal. But it was very easy to, say, regress her, or for her to get visions and things like that. So, yes, she could.
Um, at an early point in her spiritual journey, when she had just graduated from engineering school,
Mm,
out of the blue, she meets a saint who throws light on her life's purpose.
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how did that impact her?
Yeah, that's the one of my favorite chapters in the book. So what happens is, after she graduates from high school, most of her friends are like going off to like Europe for the summer or something like that. And then she chooses to go into the Himalayas, to this very spiritual town, where a lot of saints have lived and also gotten enlightened. This is called Rishikesh. The Rishi means sage in Sanskrit. And she goes off there to take a course in Advait Vedanta and Kashmiri Shaivism. These are schools of thought in the Vedic tradition. And she has a amazing time there. And this place, these places in the Himalayas, in the foothill of the Himalayas, there's a lot of sages, saints, gurus that kind of roam around. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of them. And so she and her friends are on a weekend trip to one of the sites there, and she's just outside the temple. And a lot of these saints that come by, they have higher abilities or siddhis, and so he comes up to her and he can see who she is, and without even knowing her, he says, your life is meant to integrate both the spiritual and the practical life, so that she's not confused, because this is a stage in her life that she has to now choose her life path. Like, what does she do? Does she pursue just a spiritual life, or does she, go with whatever is the norm in an Indian family, is to go to college, get a job, get married, and so on and so forth. But very few integrate both of them. And so he says, no, 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 this is your life purpose. So she's not confused, because he kind of read her mind, because at that point in her life, she was very confused. Like, what is my life? What should I do? Like, I don't really identify with the world, but I'm not quite sure what to do. So it was someone who came along and nudged her on the way, because I feel at every turning point in our life, every time we're changing chapters, someone just shows up in some way or form, whether it's a channel medium, it's a saint, it's a nadi leaf, or something shows up
Right.
and guides us to the next chapter of our life.
Yeah, and sometimes it could just be a friend or someone, they
Yeah.
say something and suddenly it's like a light bulb moment and you just know what direction to take.
Yes.
So, I thought it was a really interesting chapter too because, she was a young girl, she had just graduated, but see, even though she graduated as an engineer, she knew inside that that's not where her heart really was. And I
Yes.
think that's what the saint, who just met her and saw that in her, actually then verbalized.
Yes, yes.
So,
And also, if you look at the Vedic history, because I don't like to use the word Hindu, because it's not
mhm,
um it's not Hindi, or it's not Sanskrit. Um
yes,
most of the rishis and sages, they all had wives and families. And especially Kashmiri Shaivism never says to deny worldly life.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important to know because sometimes people think that you have to give up on the world in
Mhm.
order to find yourself or your
Exactly.
purpose, your
Or
path,
to reject it or
or
criticize
to
it.
reject it. Yeah. And there's a lot of stories of saints, doing that. Buddha did that, right? He gave up on his family in order to find himself, and get enlightened.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really interesting that she was actually guided in the opposite direction, which was to live in the world, and yet there was a possibility that she could live a spiritual life being in the world.
Yes, and
So,
to be a role model. I mean, yes, if you give up the worldly life, you would never really understand or help people. Because if they come to you with relationship problems or work problems or other problems related to finances, how are you exactly going to help people if you don't really go and experience this yourself?
right.
And when you live in the world and overcome these problems yourself, you
Mhm.
become a role model, and you can help other people by giving them some solutions, rather than
Right.
being like a bodhisattva and just, being a sage and talking about philosophy, which is not very practical.
Hmm. Right. Um, the story has many areas where you show Lala to be like a bridge between Eastern Vedic wisdom and Western New Age ideas and modalities. She experienced many processes, like channeling by Kevin Ryerson, who's a real person who
Yeah.
channeled for Dr. Walter Simkew. And
Yes.
you have had that experience, Vinita, with Kevin Ryerson.
Mhm.
Um, she experienced past life regression, life between lives, and many other experiences. She was open to all of this.
Mhm.
Now, what made her want to experience these modalities? What was she really looking for?
I think she was looking for the truth. I think she was trying to understand who she is, and to reach the final goal of enlightenment. So I think that when she came to America, she was very open, which a lot of traditionalists are not. Um, and she was not a traditionalist. So she pursued whatever gave her answers, whatever gave her experience, because she wanted to learn not just the theory, which she did. She was very knowledgeable. She learned, the Gita and, various Vedic texts, but she also wanted to experience herself and understand that knowledge with her own experience. So it doesn't matter what modality you use, right? Some modalities will work on some people, something will work on somebody else. And so she was open to experimenting. And I think that was just her nature. I think she was born like that. Like I said, most people who are spiritual, not religious, are quite open to other people's ideas and other paths and things like that. Yes.
Right. And so the people you call traditionalists that you mentioned earlier, they're the people who are following by the book. Like they are really in the world of intellect, they're following a book, maybe a religious book, and just kind of, not open to these different areas of self-inquiry, right?
Yes. Now her husband was actually more traditional in the sense that he was not interested, I guess, in past life regression and things like that, but he was not closed.
Yeah,
He was following the path of Kashmiri Shaivism, sort of. I mean, he wasn't purely a traditionalist, but I think he was more of a traditionalist. But he never rejected her. When
yeah,
she shared her experiences with him, he accepted her path. He understood her. He supported her. So even though he was sort of traditional, he wasn't really closed or critical, or he didn't think that she's crazy, and stopped
right,
her. So
right, right.
it's unique.
And
It's
I
different.
mean, that was really actually beautiful to see their relationship. Um, I have a funny question here, and it's for the chapter where you mentioned the past life therapist she saw, and you mentioned the therapist's name as Smita. And now, were you talking about me there?
Yes, I have Smitha in my book. So
Ye-
the actual past life regression, if you read that, that was not the one I had with you. But
Yes,
the experience that I did have with Smitha is mentioned in the book in a
hmm,
different context. So that's why I
right,
like it to be fiction, so that I don't have to be 100% accurate. Um,
right.
but yes, Smitha is there. She leads a past life regression for me. It's really interesting and fun to read.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading that bit. Now, can you mention the impact of that experience on Lala when she first had her past life regression?
Yeah, so if you read that part, it's about certain lives where she's had with a husband and where both of them have been spiritual. And it's sort of, and then her higher self or soul or whatever you call it, then speaks through her to Smitha. And so Smitha says, why were these lives shown to her? What is it teaching her? And things like that. So I don't remember quite exactly what the higher self came and said, but it was something to the same aspect where it's possible for to have spiritual couples that are exemplary in the world, and this is her path,
Hmm.
and this is what it's showing her is
Right,
what to do in the world. It's more important to, like keep saying, it's more who you are is what you teach the world. It doesn't matter what's coming out of your mouth. Like they say, 95% of the communication is through body language, but you can't really teach philosophy or religion or spirituality and just teach it, because you have to first live it. And whatever you live as the virtues that you are, what path you follow, what you exemplify, is what you're teaching the world, really.
right,
And so,
right.
a lot of people are struggling with what should I do? And, the focus is very external. But here, the focus is, you first reach higher, and then you will lead others through your path.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. There's a moment in Lala's life when she decides that she's going to quit trying to be an engineer and go fully into her spiritual quest.
Yeah.
And I know that you are an engineer. Now, what made you quit your corporate life and move into more spiritual pursuits?
So that's a personal question, right? So, yes, Lala in the book actually quits her very high-paying IT job because, she was doing well and her husband is a neurosurgeon and all that. She was much younger than when I retired. I was much older. Um, your question is, why did I give up my IT job?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's a very long answer. So
Whatever
last
you
year,
can share with us briefly.
so last year I would say, so I left my job in April of 2024, and a lot of shifts in my life have happened in April. Um, so that was kind of a change in chapters. I took early retirement, not very early, but yes, early retirement. And I, so why did I take, so I quit my job, and a month later in May, my ancient palm leaf of it, that are these ancient manuscripts of India, and they're written for individuals. These are messages which are thousands of years old, which are written on palm leaves, and you go find your ancient message. And that message told me that, oh, she can work for some time, but she won't really be able to hold her job because now her life is mostly going to be about spiritual service. And so I wondered, like, why would I want to go into a job? And, being head of IT, it's like very stressful. So why would I do this for short term and then quit and just pursue spiritual services? So I said, I'm just going to take a 1 year sabbatical and see if this will work out financially. And then this year I decided, no, I'm retired.
Yeah, because I see a reflection of that in Lala's decision also, right? Because she really starts becoming more focused on her spiritual journey,
Yes.
and realized that working in the IT sector, was kind of taking her away from
Yes.
being more fully immersed in her spiritual life.
Yes.
Um, Now tell us a bit about Lala's relationship with her husband Sid. It feels like a really beautiful relationship. Now, how do they really support and complement each other, especially when it comes to their individual spiritual journeys? How do they support each other? Because I think it's always interesting to see how couples who do spiritually complement each other, support each other, right? We don't see very many of them, but as you mentioned, you know some of them. So,
Yeah, I do. I do. So, like I said, he's not spiritual like she is. He's a little more traditional, but he's not traditional where he's closed. He's he's a Kashmiri himself, and Kashmiri Shaivism is something that he reads. He's very knowledgeable. And then when she goes and does all these crazy, new age things, he listens to her with an open mind. So, they're exemplifying to the world that you can follow your own personal path and
right.
not expect your partner to be exactly like you and to follow exactly the path that you follow. Because true love is about accepting, about supporting. And married life is like a railway track. You kind of go in parallel, but you don't really merge your paths like that, right? So, um, so it's kind of surprising to a lot of readers. And I know people who saying, when am I going to find my Sid? So, but he's not unrealistic because I see that in my sons. They're very supportive, they're very open. I think there's hope in the younger generation, at least, that,
Right.
support each other in whatever path they follow. It's not that she's doing something illegal, immoral, something like that. It's just
Mhm.
different. I mean, she's not,
Yeah.
a lot of time traditionalists will label people who are different as crazy or wrong, or you're going down a crazy path, and that's, a lot of judgment is there, but you're supposed to be
Yeah.
religious, but you're judgmental. And it's the
Yeah.
same other way around. I feel a lot of people who are very spiritual, they kind of reject people who are religious. Why reject? I mean, they're there in their journey. That's where they are. And you can support them through their evolution from wherever they are.
Right.
So it's both ways.
Right.
I think it's very important to understand from a bigger perspective, this is a soul's journey,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to help to see what is the bigger purpose of why we came together. A lot
Hmm.
of relationships are very karmic, and so it's very, in the sense that it's difficult because they have trying to work out karma. But
Right.
Sid and Lala's relationship is not karmic, which is
Yeah.
why you don't see a lot of, conflict and disagreements and things like that. But they came with a purpose to
Hmm.
exemplify a good couple.
Beautiful. We are now at a really interesting point in the story where Sid, who's a neurosurgeon at Stanford, comes down with COVID. And these are the early days of COVID when COVID is starting to spread. And because he's in, a hospital, he's one of the first ones to probably get it. Um, and, there was a huge loss of life during that time, and no one really knew how to contain the virus initially. There was very little hope of surviving if you caught the virus, and he caught it. You talk about how Lala went through and what she went through when Sid was in ICU. He was sinking at a certain point with very little hope of his recovery, and yet he recovered suddenly. Now, there's a story that goes with it. What happened there?
Mhm. Well, that is sort of like revealing the end of a movie. It's going to be a spoiler alert here. Um, so he, there is actually a walk-in that happens. So, one night he is close to leaving and he's on a ventilator, and Lala has little hope that that he's going to survive the night, and she's terrified. And next day in the morning, the nurse says, "Yeah, he's recovering," and she's like, "What?" And and so she's quite surprised. And then when he comes home and she looks into his eyes, she's got a very strange feeling.
Mhm.
Um, this is not the guy who went into the hospital. This is somebody else who's come out. And then she goes back to her psychic saying, "There's something very strange about my husband." And so she drops the bombshell, the psychic
Mhm.
Bonnie. She drops a bombshell that, there's been a walk-in. So she just freaks out that there is apparently this walk-in. So, and she's like, "Who's my husband now? Like, who's this spirit? Who's the soul who's come in?"
Right.
And so Bonnie explains to her that no, 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 this is a soul contract that the three of you signed before you were born, that, now the world is going to shift into a very, very different phase. And for this shift that the world is going to go through, Sid agreed, the original Sid agreed to saying, "Okay, my part is done. I'm leaving. This other guy is going to come in and handle all this sort of 911 type of events that are coming up."
Right, right. I thought it was a really interesting point in the story, and more than anything else, I feel like this will want people to pick up your book and read it. Um, Especially, the idea of walk-ins. I think a lot of people don't know what a walk-in is.
Mhm.
Do you want to just shed a little bit of light on that?
Well, there are different types of walk-ins. So, I mean, I can tell you about the one that happened here because there's a whole catalog of them. Um, so this is when the body remains the same and one soul departs,
Mm-hmm.
and in a Vedic terms, within 3 days, another soul has to walk in. So there is a name for it in Sanskrit also. But essentially, it's a migration, a soul
Mm-hmm.
migration into a body uh, that from which another soul has departed. Now, I don't
Right.
want to get into all kinds of nuances because there could be two souls in one body also,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And
But in
and
this,
there's a chapter on that too, you know,
yes,
with
yes, there's
one of the
another person
cases.
that she heals who has two souls,
Yeah.
which Smita knows very well.
Yeah. Mm.
But so that's kind of what a walk-in is, yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, it's really interesting, right? Because, you know, we all of us here who are hypnotherapists and we study reincarnation, and we know even in you know, we just got done with the symposium, and I think there are cases in reincarnation research where there have been walk-ins or exchanges of souls.
Yes.
Um, so it's kind of interesting to see how this affects Lala's life. Now, there are some very earth-shaking world events that follow, uh, you know, the event of the pandemic. And there is in the book you discuss a collapse of political and financial systems, and there are some natural disasters. These are described in the last few chapters of the book. Now, what was why did you bring these huge shifts and changes into the story? What were you trying to convey through these shifts?
Yeah, before I get there, so in the book, before these shifts happen, part of the reason why she has these regression sessions, she has the in-between lives where the therapist actually takes her into the future. In the in-between life, she sees the future. That's a very
Hmm.
important part um, of later on where things come together. And in other visions that she has, that she sees the future. So she actually sees a lot of the future that actually came. So this
Hmm.
is where the book actually becomes completely fictional, and it's based on some of my own sessions, my some of my own visions of the future as well. And she's sort of being prepared for a huge shift that's
Right.
coming. And she realizes that is why she's taken birth on the planet at this time, is because her soul has a special role to play in this
Hmm.
transition. So it is of a time where the earth is sort of turning over, where it is kind of rejecting the lower vibrational things, and
Hmm.
because it has to migrate into a much purer, higher vibrational frequencies, as you may call it. So a lot of these systems have to be erased for newer and better uh, things. I won't say systems, but newer and better ways to live for humanity,
Right.
and
Right.
especially for the earth, so almost like sort of turn over.
Right.
So that's where a lot of these things happen. But you see, because she's had these visions, she could actually see them in a bigger and larger context and not be so shaken up by very traumatic things that happen on the planet. And then, there's the solar flares that it goes on to in later in the book as well.
Right. And the visions and everything are all part of her spiritual growth as she grows spiritually, you
Hmm.
know, is how she begins to shift into this being who is now having visions and you know, a future, and also she's starting to heal people,
Yes.
right? So you know, both Sid and Lala grow through their relationship and through these shifts. How did their lives change once these shifts started to happen?
Yeah, so that's Sid 2.0. So so they are, again, this is all fictional future.
Right.
So they come into their roles, right? Whether it's, helping if there is an earthquake in LA, and they have to feed people and take care of people, then they actually realize it's very difficult to live in a metropolitan area. And so, the cities are falling apart because it's just very, very traumatic, and the crime going up, and, all kinds of things falling apart. So it's very difficult to live in the city. So then they move to a conscious community, which is sort of a self-sustaining community in Colorado Springs. And again, the contrast is shown with her brother and the rest of her family who
Yeah.
are trying to make it work. And
Yeah.
her brother lives on the East Coast, and there's huge problems, and what's happening with her parents in India and things like that. So I've given sort of a picture of what's happening with the spiritual people, and there's a greater divide or polarity of, one side, the world is falling apart, and yet a new earth is birthing. So there's
Mhm.
like a new birth. And so it's sort of like you have these communities which are uh, proof of concept, or the first sort of exemplary um, mini worlds that come up that would then replace the current world. So it's sort of
Right.
like, this contrast that I've shown about the future.
Sure. Towards the end of the book, we see Lala and Sid are part of, this commune, as you mentioned, and a group of 144,000
Yeah.
souls that were sent to Earth on a mission. Can you share how you got that number and if that number means anything?
Yes, actually, that's a very important part, and I'm glad we could cover it before we end, because the end is actually very important for the
Mhm.
current time that we're in rather than the past. So, in my life between lives, and I'm talking about my real life and not the book,
Right.
but in my experience in the life between lives, I the therapist realized that I've gone into a state where she started asking her own questions from me,
Mhm.
because I had sort of gone into a trance-like state. So she said, when will the earth shift, and what'll happen? And so I had actually moved into the future,
Mhm.
and this was in 2019. And
Right.
I described what will happen in 2020. I said there's like a war-like situation, a lot of people are dying, and that was basically what I saw was COVID. And then I moved further into the future where I saw these myself actually outside the earth. It was like we were uh, in, I don't know if we were outside the atmosphere, but we like sort of in the atmospheric layer, and we were like a grid. And I was one of, and she said, "How many are you?" So I said, we're 144,000. It just came out of my mouth. I mean, like I said, I was in a
Mhm.
trance, so I have no idea what was coming out of my
Right.
mouth. So I said, "Yeah, we're 144." And I saw like a grid around the planet, and I was like one point in that grid.
Mhm.
And so she said, What are you guys doing?" So I said, "We're holding up the vibrations of the earth. We're sort
Mhm.
of like keeping the, I don't know, electromagnetic of the earth, or the vibrations of the earth." Because I said, if we don't do that, the vibrations and the electromagnetic field, or the gravitational field, will just
Mhm.
collapse. So,
Mhm.
so then I mean, what happens into the future in the book, which hasn't
Yeah.
come yet, is a description of that actually taking place.
Right.
Um, so my therapist later told me that, "Do you know this 144,000 is in the Bible?" I'm like, "Really?
Mhm.
I didn't know." So it's in the chapter of Revelations. Apparently, it's a
Ah.
very well-known number.
Yeah, very interesting that you actually got that number and got some explanation of what that was about during your life between life session.
Yes,
Real
yes.
life between life session, not the fictional book.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Now the story ends on a really interesting note. Now, depending on which side of the coin you're looking at, it can be very uplifting, or for some others where the world is collapsing, maybe not so much. Um, can you share the core message that you are trying to send out through the book and through the story?
Yes. So, I portray that in the context that we are all souls, which who are immortal. Because I don't want to build fear in people that there's massive calamities. And the earth is a school, like most of you know. Uh,
Yeah,
so, the ones who do not sort of graduate, those souls actually go to another planet, and the ones who came here for a purpose, volunteer to be here, they kind of go off into wherever their next mission is, because they were
right.
all volunteered, as is mentioned. So the last chapter connects back to the first chapter, where the first chapter started. So kind of the ending and the beginning kind of come together. Um, and what I'm trying to convey is that I do personally feel, because in my own experiences, I feel we're coming up on certain big changes. I don't know if you'll call it the shift or something, but it's just unsustainable. And I think it's time for some reset to
Mhm.
come. And that's just not my words, because, like I said, I've personally experienced this. And I want to have people read this,
Mhm.
and see if they can prepare themselves for something like that in the future as well by reading through it.
Sure, sure. Is there anything else that you would like to share about this book with us?
No, that was quite a bit. Unless someone has any
I,
questions. Yeah.
yeah, actually, Carol has a question here, which um, is the book set in India? Um, do you want to
So
explain a little
the
bit?
the book, yeah, the book starts off in India. So uh, Lala is born in India, and then she gets married to a neurosurgeon who is an Indian American in California. So she moves here, and the rest of the book is based in America. They are in the Bay Area for a long time, and then they go to, like I said, a community in Colorado Springs. Yeah.
Um, well, I'm opening the floor for any questions people might have. So Ellen has a question. Ellen, please unmute.
Hi. So this is like fascinating. Um, but I don't think you're on Audible, right? The book's not on Audible.
I'm actually trying to create an audiobook. Even today, I created chapter two, so I'm doing my own audiobook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so my question actually is, did husband number two, um, did that really happen in real life
No,
or
no.
no? Okay. Okay. But I think it's, I wrote some notes about your relationship or Lala's relationship with her husband
Mhm.
and how I'm wondering if in the beginning with husband number one, um, did their support of each other kind of help her to deal with the duality and being an engineer and being a spiritual person because he was so classical and traditional, but was open at the same time. It's almost like um, he was helpful to her in being able to maintain both worlds. Do you
Yes,
think do you think that's the case? Yeah.
yes. He kept her grounded. He kept
Yeah.
her grounded, and they chose, like they chose roles before they came in.
Yeah.
The thing is that they needed to play these roles to be an example to their friends, to their relatives, and other people in general. So he had to play the more traditional role, but open and supportive, and she had to play the more spiritual role, and still, be open to his traditional approach.
Right.
So I think they were both good for each other, not just Lala, but
Mhm.
he also got a lot of exposure to, experiencing things because, he used to read the theory. Oh, this happens and that happens because a lot of the Vedic tradition is about, grand experiences and all this theory about, the Kundalini and chakras and all, but he never experienced any of that. But she's the one who's experiencing, her chakras and Kundalini rising and all of that stuff. So he could actually see that in practice, really, not just read from books. So I think they were both good for each other.
Yeah, I think that's every psychic's dream, right? Is to have someone who just totally accepts their spouse like that.
Totally.
Thank you so much.
Sure, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
Ellen. Anyone else? Any other questions? Carol.
Oh, go ahead, Karen.
I'm curious if husband 2.0 was as supportive and considerate when he came in.
That's a great question, and I did not ask it on purpose because I wanted one of you to ask it.
All right.
So actually Sid 2.0 is comes in almost like a spiritual master. He's like an ascended master. I mean, he's a very evolved soul, and he becomes like a guide to Lala because she really didn't. I mean, there's a chapter where there's a guru explained, but she doesn't pursue a guru as such. But the moment where she actually needed somebody more evolved than her to take her into this whole phase where she's leading purely a spiritual life and the earth going through the shift and all this kind of stuff happening, she needed that guidance, and that guidance is right there at home for her.
Yeah, but was he any good at neurosurgery?
He was.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you have to read the book though. There's some things which are very interesting,
I'm
like the
totally reading
exchanges and things, though. It's quite nice.
it.
Carol, you had a question, yes.
Yeah, so my question is more of a personal nature. I was wondering what your session with Kevin Ryerson was like.
So it was again at a time when one of my chapters was going to end. I am divorced, and so that marriage, the chapter of marriage, was coming to a close, and that's when, like I said, every time a chapter changes in your life, somebody comes in with some messages or some guidance and shows you that no, no, it's fine. So the Kevin Ryerson, the things he said is just amazing. Um, he did tell me about a past life where, uh, I don't want to say any more, but it's revealed in the book. And so he did tell me about, he confirmed, because I do see some of my past lives. So he confirmed, yes, the life that you're seeing is true. But he also showed me the path forward. And he explained a lot of things to me that were going on, and that I had, in fact, um, avoided the practical life in many of my lives before, where I avoided getting married, or I left married life, or I didn't want a worldly life. And he says, you've just completed that karma. So just to back up, before I got married, I had a channeling session here in the US because I went to college here long, long ago. This is like 1986. And the circle of seven, the spirits that came through, they said, you have to go through the karma of marriage this time, and blah 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 blah, and you've always avoided this, and I was really not interested in getting married in this life, but I said, no, 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 I have to go through this, and I kind of knew I have to go through this. And sort of they said, we'll come and talk to you after that karma is over. They told me in 86. And so when this was ending, and Kevin Ryerson's spirit that comes in, Achun Ray, who's an ancient Egyptian priest, he says, that karma of marriage is going on. I was trying to hold on to my marriage. He says, no, 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 no. You have to move on. You have a lot of work to do. So you need to move on. And this will happen and that will happen and stuff like that. So it was transformational. It was a transformational session.
Thank you for sharing with us. Yeah. Any other questions for Vinita? Okay, Carol has another question.
Yeah, I'm full of questions. You talk about the Indian saints, and I wonder how they compare to Western Christian saints. Can you talk a little bit about that?
See, the mystics are very much similar. It doesn't matter if they're Christian or Muslim, like the Sufis, for example, or they're the Indian mystics, because Lala is one of the mystics, but India is full of like a whole plethora of mystic saints, mystic saints. Um, the the devotion aspect is the same, but the who you have devotion for is different. But what's important is the devotion. So the devotional aspect is the same. The experiential part of experiencing the light which is within you is the same as the light which you are worshiping, or the light which is in other people. The experience of oneness. Because if you see, light is universal. So the experiences are very universal. But if you hang on to name and form, there's a lot of differences. But a lot of these things, which, because I studied mystics from all religions, uh, the this is why I like mystics, because it's so universal. It's their experiences, and you can't say somebody's experience is bad. All these mystical experiences from anywhere in the world are so beautiful. You can relate to all of them.
There's a quote I'm familiar with. It's called, "I love the mystery more than my beliefs."
Yes. I love mysteries.
Ellen, you have another question?
Oh, no, I was just going to tell Karen that I'm writing that down because
Oh,
that's really good. I'm finding this whole conversation so fascinating. And I don't know, I mean, your mind is so, I mean, it's just on another level to create these situations and things that happen. I can't wait to read it. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy. Yeah, I
Same
think
way.
I think it's a fun read. I hope Smitha had fun reading it, but she was on a timeline because she had to interview me. So it's not fun when you're on a timeline. But I think it's just like a fun thing, and anyone who's spiritual, who loves to read about these experiences, and there's one chapter in there on her experiences with a spiritual master who's a living master. And he's very, very similar to Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography for Yogi, but he's living in blood and you can meet him and stuff.
Mhm.
So he's from the same lineage of Mahavatar Babaji. And my experiences of being initiated by him into Kriya, and then I literally like went off into this astral realm, and I had all these experiences, and I could see his astral body and all this very fascinating chapter, and he confirmed actually what I was seeing is true.
Wow.
Is the book readily available?
Yes, yes, it's on Amazon.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to reading it also.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Vinita, it's been so wonderful to have you here today and share about your book and about your life. And I think what's really, really great is that there's so many experiences listed in the book that I know you have personally experienced. They are coming from your personal experience. So that makes this book even more interesting. I also know that you're working very diligently on your next book, which is not a fictional novel. And it's very, very different from what you've written here. Please share a little bit about your next book.
Yeah, and that's a nonfiction, but it's mind-boggling. And I gave a sort of preview because I had this experience of finding my ancient palm leaf. So this message is prior to the Kali Yuga. So Kali Yuga is our present age. So before this age started, the Kali Yuga, uh, there, I say, higher beings and sages who conveyed
And a
messages.
yuga is like epochs, right? So there are
Epochs,
these
right?
epochs that are cyclical in nature, right?
Right. And so when the leaf was asked, it said it's 500, 5,500 years old. And so I've done research where, there's been carbon dating of these leaves, and these leaves are copied over every 3 to 500 years. And there's some history because the script itself is from the fourth century. So like I said, I kind of retired and I'm doing that, and I started writing a book which it predicted I would write. So this leaf kind of predicts your future as well and guides you and gives you certain remedies to uh, remove certain karmas which are blocks in your way. So I've written about these palm leaves and my research and my own story with the palm leaves and finding these palm leaves, which are mind-boggling. I mean, unbelievable. My experience now, I found 14 leaves in 1.5 years, 14 of my leaves, and things that it said that came true, things that the information and the guide. I mean, it's just unbelievable. My life has become magical. Is the only word I can say. Is it's beyond mystical. It's totally magical. It's like literally living a life of like magic, and it's real. And also, I've written about these ancient sages or siddhas, and they are the ones who attained light bodies. So their bodies actually transformed into light, and so there's sages which have light bodies like Mahavatar Babaji and other ones who attained light bodies while living. So they're documented cases where the British government said, he doesn't have a shadow, he does not breathe, he does not have to eat, and he disappeared on such and such day. Um, so these are the living people that are documented, and even the ancient ones, plus a lot of the Buddhist monks that whose bodies disappeared. Padmasambhava was one of the famous ones, but there's a lot of Tibetan monks whose bodies either shrank or completely left, or left nails behind. But these are up till 2004, one in 1994. I mean, these are all documented cases of where their physical bodies disappeared, and of course the siddhas who transformed into light bodies, so you could not see them. So like I said, it's going to be a fascinating book.
Yes, sounds wonderful. And you mentioned the British government, so this is during the British, the
Yes, so the
colonial
one
rule in India when they were documenting some of this.
Yes, so the one that I'm speaking about, his name is Ramalinga Swamigal, but because he has such a difficult name, I didn't say it. His short
Yeah.
form is Valalar, and he's quite famous. And he basically disappeared January 30th, 1874. But it's
Wow.
documented in the I mean, in the court and some other documents of the British with that he actually disappeared. Yes, it's a fact.
Wow. There's some fascinating stuff out there, isn't there? So yeah, I'm looking forward to your next book, Vinita, and thank you so much for making time to be with us here today. If anyone has any other questions, we have a few minutes here, or anything else that you would like to share, please unmute and go ahead.
I just want to say I hope you'll come back and talk to us about that next book. That sounds fascinating.
Yes, I would love to. It is fascinating. It's a journey actually. The whole book has actually become my journey. It's very interesting.
I know what you mean. Yeah. And I look forward to seeing you when I come out in February.
Yes, yes, I look forward to it too.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
thank you so much, Vinita. And wow, keep writing. It sounds really wonderful. Um, it,
yes, and I want to thank you, Carol, for hosting me and Smitha. I know it's a lot of effort and a lot of preparation and things like that. So I really appreciate you hosting me. And if anyone is interested in finding their message, ancient message, and their palm leaf, you can contact me because I've helped hundreds of people now, including Smitha, to find their message. And it's really fascinating if you do find it.
Does everyone have one?
Not everyone, but my guess is that you do.
Thank you.
Is that considered like, I was going to say, some people are new on this planet and some are older. And I imagine these are probably people that have been around a lot longer, whether it's this planet or others. Because I imagine there's new souls as well. What do you think on that?
You know, it doesn't mention whether it's an old soul or relatively new soul or any such thing. What I feel is that it would have definitely people who are spiritual, definitely, but also the supporting characters. So, you know, their family members would also find their leaves just to support the main character. So it's a mystery. I haven't solved the mystery.
Yeah.
It's beyond me to know.
I mean, just to think about these messages being recorded on these, palm leaves thousands of years ago, that whole thing is so unbelievable and mind-boggling. And yet, we have photos of those palm leaves. And
No,
actually,
I have a palm
Vinita's,
leaf with myself, actually, that I brought
oh,
back with it from India. So I have it
yeah.
with me. But the fascinating thing is that you do not give any information to them. You just give your thumbprint, and that's all you do. And then they start reading leaf after leaf after leaf because they start reading, okay, is your name Karen? And you say no. So they go to the next leaf. Okay, is your name such and such? Or is your father's name such and such? So all the information is pre-written. You only confirm or deny. So my name was there, my parents' name, my date of birth, my children's details, my life details. I mean, everything was there.
So I don't have to go find a palm leaf. I can just go to palmleaves.com or something, right? And
No, 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 no. So you contact me and I'll take you through the
I'll
process.
contact you. Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I
Just
think you
contact
you
me and
need
I'll help
to
you.
you need to go through Vinita only because she's tested them, she's
Yeah.
checked out their background and everything, made sure that they are going through proper channels and everything. And
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to even make up things, honestly, because if all they're taking is your thumbprint and then they're trying to match the leaf that goes with that thumbprint, and the leaf has your parents' name and your spouse's name or your ex's name and your kids and all that, it's kind of hard to even think about it. So it's really fascinating stuff. So I'm looking forward to your next book, Vinita, very much. And I think we'd love to have you back
All right.
once that book is all done. So thank you so much
Thank
for being here today and sharing, some details of dance of duality. Just a fascinating read, really fun read. Like you said, it's a fun book, and it's an easy read. It's really, it doesn't have like, it doesn't go into depths of like Vedic wisdom or Shaivism and all of that, but it brings together, in my opinion, brings together this beautiful merging of Eastern wisdom and Western, modalities, and New Age. And it doesn't discount anything, it accepts everything. So I
Mhm.
love that about this book. So thank you so
Well, nice
much.
talking to all of you, and hopefully we'll see each other soon in
Yeah.
person.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.